Hello and welcome to Cane Roots Art Gallery and Kalaloo Network Culture TV, broadcasting on Tempo Network. I am Sonia Nahardeen, presenting Art Over Bush Tea. Today we have an exciting show featuring the legacy of Leo Carty, presented by his son, Steph Carty. As you can see by that introduction, you just want to say like, whoa, wow, what a body of work. So we have a full show, a very full show, really just covering the span. And I don't even think the show is long enough to cover all of what he's done within his career. But I'm sure there's going to be a part two to this. Don't you agree, Steph?
Absolutely.
Good.
Thank
welcome, Steph. Welcome.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you and welcome. And I thank you for the opportunity.
All right. Let me introduce your dad by letting our audience know that, I think that St. Croix thinks sometimes that Leo Carty belongs to them. And yes, in a way, he does belong to them because actually he came here from 1976. But before 1976, he was actually born in New York, in Harlem. And also, too, I consider myself somewhat of a Harlemite, besides being born in Guyana and moving to Queens and then living in Harlem. So I feel very close to that in terms of your dad being in Harlem. So he was born in Harlem, April 17, 1931. So that was also at a time of a lot of cultural expression and cultural development, because Harlem has always been the hub of that, going back through, and I think even before the Harlem Renaissance. But your dad's talent was recognized at a very, very early age, because it's also said that he received a scholarship to the Museum of Modern Art for Children at the age of 10. And when I looked at his CV, besides that, what pops out in my head between that scholarship to also attending Pratt, and before attending Pratt, your dad went to, go ahead, fill in the other things for me. Like, oh, there it is, Cooper Union. Your dad went to Cooper Union School of the Arts. So let me let you talk about your father's background in terms of his art.
Yes. So you mentioned him being a Harlemite. One of the things that was cool for him growing up was he grew up during the time of the Harlem Renaissance, and he would do sketches of Duke Ellington, Billie Holiday. I mean, it's just phenomenal as a teenager, and he started sketching was his platform. His first focus. And he won the scholarship to Modern Museum School of Art, and then his career just took off from there. It afforded him a fantastic and privileged education. So he grew up during the Harlem Renaissance. It really had an impact on him. And I remember going through the basement there on Monroe Street, because the family moved from Harlem to Brooklyn. But there they were, sketches of the great musicians. He would sketch them right there in Harlem on the sidewalk, and then he went into the military, and after Cooper Union, he served in the Air Force as an artist, which was phenomenal at the time. And that's where he started making his bones. And then he transitioned into one of the things that was important to him was to bring Black images, right? He said he looked around, he saw no Black images of himself, because he had this special education, and what he was exposed to when he went in the service and went to the South it was a rude awakening for him. He experienced racism for the first time in the Deep South. And it had a big impact on him. So when he returned, this ignited a fire in him to bring Black images. He did Black postcards. He founded Anton Studios in the early 60s, which was a Black-owned business in the early 60s, where he did Black Santa Clauses, Black Jesus. For our community, he put our faces where our faces were not seen at that time. And it gave hope to the community. And that was his ultimate goal. I have this Marcus Garvey behind me, and that he did in 62 at Anton Studios. And this represents, at the time, Marcus Garvey's prophesied that the only way we would as a people move forward was we needed to look back to Africa, but independence was important, and Africa was the route, and that's why he's pointing. And all the flags represent, to this point, those African and Caribbean nations. We do come by way of the Cardis, do come through Trinidad and Tobago. And so the West Indies and the African nations are represented in this Garvey piece, phenomenal piece that he did in 62 at Anton Studios.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. So your father's history, so your grandparents are from Trinidad?
Correct, on both sides of my bloodline.
Oh, so they all migrated to New York?
Correct.
That's wonderful. Great migration. There you go again. So the piece now we can talk about is that no one will be able to see that prolific of works that your dad did in the Anton studio right now with the cards, but I think when we come to our next part 2, we'll be able to show those other parts of your dad's work. Tell us a little bit of your dedication to carrying your father's legacy, because when I've talked to you from the very beginning, that's what struck me. I was really in awe of your excitement, your exuberance of making sure, I think people here on St. Croix to be able to carry your father's legacy through something that your father could be remembered. Yes, people on St. Croix have purchased your dad's work. They have originals. There are very few originals that I know of for sale. I was able to buy some from a gallery, some small nude portraits that your dad painted at the Art Student League, and I showed them to you yesterday. So besides people owning his original work, I think I see that you are interested in keeping him alive in a very different way through the scholarship. So could you share that with us?
Yes, and thank you for the question. My dad's legacy is I'm very passionate about it. His life's work, he was so humble. And he was just a humble person, human being. And I would be his biggest fan and his biggest advocate. I used to sell his artwork when I was in the service. That's when we started doing business together, my dad and I. I just appreciate being an artist myself. At 12 years old, I won a scholarship from PS 268 in Brooklyn, and had my work displayed at the Brooklyn Museum. And that's our connection, because he won the scholarship at age 10, and I'm his youngest of 4 sons. And we shared this art passion. when he moved me to St. Croix, when I moved down with him in St. Croix back in '85, actually '83, it changed my life, my whole life trajectory. And this is something that he and I talked about. This last year marks 10 years of his passing. And that's, Sonia, that's when you and I first got in contact. And I had this vision of what I wanted to do to honor his legacy. It was a promise that I made to him, that I would make sure that his artwork would be seen for generations to come. And so that's the passion piece. It's a personal piece. And what I'd like to do in the Virgin Islands and in the territory is, one, introduce him to this next generation of young artists and inspire them, support them. We'd like to do annual scholarships within the community, within the territory. We start with St. Croix, but I see it growing to St. Thomas and St. John throughout the territory, to honor his legacy and inspire the next generation of Crucian artists. Because you mentioned how Crucians claimed Leo Cardi, and the reality is, Sonia, that he received his highest honor in 1986. Governor Schneider at the time bestowed that honor on him, and he's the only non-resident to have been recognized. And you know, I remember when I said some words at his memorial 10 years ago, I mentioned that, and I said, you know, we as a family, I wanted my dad, as he got older in age, to come live with us. He was like, no. You know, he loved St. Croix. He loved going to Lil Bay every day. And that was his life. He loved the relationships he had. He taught at every level. He went into the prisons and had an art and would teach art. He had a senior program for 12 years. He also taught at St. Dunstan's for 12 years, of whom I'm a graduate of St. Dunstan's. Big up to all my St. Dunstanites. And yeah, you know, he just loved it. The outpouring of love and affection the last 2 weeks, which I've been sharing his artwork throughout the community, has been inspiring to me, and we appreciate it as a family. I want to say that, and we want to and we want to give back. Mm-hmm.
Yes, you're very, very welcome. Very shortly, we're going for a break. And when we return, you know, I was so excited when we moved right into the show because there was so much to cover. But when we return, we're going to be talking about our bush tea, what you and I are drinking today. And we're going to be looking at some works that your father created and more. And there's so much more to start talking about, also too. About specific things that he's done in his career. So stay tuned for the rest of that. And before we leave, think about what we are going to be talking in terms of his mural, the one mural that he did and you said the mural was at the court system?
Yes, right downtown Christiansted.
Okay, so
yes.
We have the mural is going to be in our list to talk about.
The Alaric L. Christian, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I remembered first laying my eyes on a piece of work by your dad in an art gallery. And I never saw his work in a magazine, but I'm generally the kind of person that walks into a gallery or walks into a space or a market or wherever. And if I see something, I know exactly what I like. When I saw your dad's work, it was almost a very romantic feeling. about the time past. And St. Croix, and I've said this to a few people, St. Croix is the romanticism of my youth. And it almost seems to me that if your father could have been born in a much earlier time in St. Croix, that would have been how he captured it in the time period that he drew about, like the church coming into King Street, people in their fineries, because he wasn't part of that time, but he captured, I feel, the most romantic part of that period, using light in the most impressionistic way. I am not a scholar of art. I can just tell you what I like, and in terms of what captures my eye, but that is exactly how your father's work hit me when I first saw it in the gallery. We'll be right back. Thank you, Steph. We'll be right back.
See, this is the Mud Palace Gallery, and I am the queen.
Hello.
I am the empress. And the fact of the matter is, every one of us is our own royalty, of our own universe, of our own country, of our own. But we must set the precedent. We must claim the place. There is no competition amongst us because we all are. You know, and this is really about being the I am. I am everything, and I am nothing. When you understand that nothing is not nothing. You understand? It's the zero, which is
Everything.
and when we hit that space where we can and we know we are everything, there ain't no competition. That's right.
Hello.
Pure light.
I used to watch BET, MTV, VH1, now I watch Tempo. Soca, Calypso, Reggae Dancehall. Don't stall, better get tuned in to the tempo. Don't have cable, they got an app. Go to your app store, download that. Whether it's tourism, cuisine, or the social scenes, if it ain't Tempo, it's a rap. Who got the Caribbean views? Tempo. It's the latest in Caribbean news. Tempo. You tryna cook Caribbean food? Tempo. You know they got the music videos too. Tempo. Who got the Caribbean views? Tempo. It's the latest in Caribbean news. Tempo. You tryna cook Caribbean food? Tempo. You know they got the music videos too. Tempo.
Welcome back to Cane Roots Art Gallery and Kalaloo Network, Culture TV, broadcasting on Tempo Network. I'm Sonia Nahardeen. Today we have our great guest, Steph Carty, honoring the legacy of his father, Leo Carty. Steph, I'm going to let you take this segment because I segued in the ending talking about how powerfully I was moved by your dad's work. So I think it's appropriate at this time that you introduce the 6 pieces that, starting with the scratch band, if you can talk about those pieces and share it with our audience.
Yes. So before I show the pieces, Sonia, I just want to touch on the time frame in which Dad's work is a representation of. And so Dad was an historian, right? Just know that there's a history to every piece, each and every piece of his works. And he's painting during the time that the Danes were in control of the 3 islands known as the Danish West Indies. And he's painting in that time frame. That's why if you look at the clothes, the dress, right? You'll see the suits and you'll see the flowing dresses. The women are well covered and there's head ties and you have the baskets. So he's really painting from a historical time when the Virgin Islands was under that Danish rule, right? So the first piece we're going to discuss, and this was in our living room, I remember, dining area for quite some time before he put it for auction. So what you see here is your classic scratch band. Right, you see the players. You also see out in the courtyard, and this is downtown Christiansted. It's going to look familiar to you, right? And you see the church on the hill. Again, another historic church on the hill, and he always featured one of the historical points of view within the St. Croix and the Virgin Islands are known, St. Croix in particular, for the historic churches on island. And so churches are prominent in a lot of his pieces. The other is the next piece I'm going to discuss is Bandmaster. Here again, just pretty colors. It's down by the fort in Frederiksted. Love the colors in this.
That bandstand still exists today.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Now this one, again, one of his favorite beach. We would go here often, Little Bay, down by the lagoon in downtown Christiansted. But this is First Steps. Again, if you see the clothing, you see the baby taking the steps, the baskets, the boat overturned, and his water scenes are just incredible to me. I mean, his ability to put the reflection from the down tide is just beautifully done. One of my favorite pieces. Latest news. Again, the light going through the main subject here are the 2 women gossiping under the tree. All talk.
If it's not gossiping, I've learned a new word being on this island, melee.
Melee.
Melee. Okay.
Right, and then this is Aftermarket. This is one of Dad's. You'll see different versions to this because he did it at least 5 different renditions. Again, this is a classic historical photo during the 18th century. late 18th century, because as we know, the Virgin Islands was purchased by the U.S. in 1917. So he's painting, late 18th century. And thus, that's why the people are dressed the way they are. And the last piece we'll speak to will be Afternoon Bath. Again, I'm not sure of where this is. But again, within the historical archives of the Virgin Islands, you'd be surprised. You would see, you would find a lot of his images that he brought to life from the historical archives, the Virgin Islands history. And the last piece would be this, Marcus Garvey. I spoke briefly to it earlier. You could see on my screen, I see the Trinity flag is at the end here. But you have the African nations, you have Garvey pointing the way, saying that we had to look back to Africa. Powerful piece, 1962. And this is called The Prophet. And then behind me is Wash Day, my personal favorite Leo Cardi painting.
Is what? I'm sorry, which one is your favorite? Because that was one of the questions I was going to ask.
Over my shoulder. Yes.
Wash Day? Wash Day. And why is that one? Why is that your favorite?
It's the water. It's what he did here. I mean, it's just spectacular. The water just captivates. I mean, you're just in awe of his ability to bring water to life. And for whatever reason, this painting has moved from Germany, Atlanta. I mean, wherever I've gone, and I've moved a lot. And now I'm settled here in Maryland. But this painting is always with me.
Yeah, it's water. Maybe, and you've carried that painting with you also because water represents, and I've been told that through when artists put water, and particularly a boat, within a painting, it's about a journey. And it's interesting that you've taken your father's painting, one of your favorites, from place to place, because you have also journeyed through those places. So even if you might not have taken a boat, but you have certainly journeyed through places in your life, in terms of physical places and probably even emotional places, and places where you might have even matured in terms of your own growth. So water does represent that in many ways. For me, I can't tell you about
I like that.
Yeah, what water is about that. Your father is very deeply an impressionistic painter. That's what I think he can be best described as. And we can certainly see that very clearly in his work. We kind of moved right into the show without even talking about what we created on the show, which is Art Over Bush Tea, because this was going to be so big in terms of the body of work. But I just wanted my listening audience to know today that today I created cinnamon, lemongrass tea, sorrel, and soursop leaf. So that's what I'm drinking today. I normally introduce this at the beginning of the program, but it's sort of way a little further in. But I just wanted the listening audience to know, our audience to know that's what I'm having today, because I would like to create the audience to kind of figure out when they're with me, that when they sit down with me, that they have their cup of tea and they're listening and they're viewing and that they're feeling quite relaxed. So audience, this is what I'm having today. So you can write those notes down. It's a good mixture: sorrel, soursop leaf, lemongrass, and cinnamon stick. And what are you drinking today, Steph?
Well, Sonia, I have to tell you that my grandmother, my mother's mother used to tell us, Steph, make sure you drink a hot cup of tea every morning. You have to start the day with a good hot cup of tea. And so I drink tea religiously. This is today. I'm having some ginger lemon tea, and I've also sliced the ginger, sliced very fine, and put it with the tea as well, and a little honey.
Ginger is very good for the circulation.
It is.
Yeah, and Granny was right, and that hot cup of tea in the morning gets things moving, going through the body. Those old people had their ways, and those old ways made a lot of sense.
Oh,
and look at you, you're still carrying, and of course that was the grandmother from Trinidad.
Yes.
So, tell me a little bit about you watching your father create.
Yeah, so when I moved with Dad was more into the cartoons, to be honest with you. But during the cycles, he was my art teacher at St. Dunstan's, and during the when we would get to painting, he would really light up when he would see my work. And anyone that's been mentored by Leo Cardi knows that he's not the art teacher to tell you what to do. He respected your talent as an artist, and he would just guide you and horn and help you to direct, and push you forward. But he really was, again, so humble and was just a gentle guide. But watching him create, it was when I left St. Dunstan's, he stopped. That's when he stopped doing the cartoons, and that's when he started doing these fantastic impressionist works. And he and I, of course, would keep in touch. But it was when my brother passed in '96. I came back, and it was devastating for our family. And Dad and I needed each other. And I spent, he passed in April. I spent that whole summer on St. Croix with Dad. And this is how he healed. And I just see him work. It was phenomenal, because he would have 3 to 4 pieces going at once. And he would do these studies. So you'd always see within a painting, like, for instance, over my shoulder, he might make her a painting. So that would be on one canvas. These over here might be another. And then he would have the entire wash day going on another. And so that's how he would perfect his craft. And, initially I would say, well, Dad, where are the faces? And he said, look, man, this is not about the details, because my dad is a phenomenal portrait artist as well. But that he did a lot of that early in his career. Again, like you said, the next show, Sonia. But for the impressionist work, he said, look, it's about color, and it's about how you make the color and the values. If you look here, this corner is shaded, but then you could see the 3 different layers of landscape. And that was the magic. That's how he made the magic happen. And it was just phenomenal to me. I just sit there and, because we lived in Princess. So shout out to the Grand Princess. And I go play ball at Princess Court and come back, and he would just be moving along. He was like a machine. He'd just be really peaceful. He was a tea drinker as well. And he would have his sometimes he would do coffee in the morning, but throughout the day he would do his coffee. He would do tea and just create. It's just phenomenal how he would approach. The other thing, if you ever got a commission piece from Leo Cardi, know that it was never finished. I mean, like, what are you talking about? He's like, I got to do this, I got to do that. And up to the day that he delivered that commission piece, he was still finding something that he could perfect. And it taught me that, to put that eye. He used to say, put that eye on your paintings. He would photograph his paintings as well. And because he would say, your eye gets dull because you're painting it, but the picture wouldn't lie. And the picture would show the imperfections. And to this day, I try to do the same. I do the same with my work. I photograph it as I go, and the picture reveals the imperfections. He was, he would work a year on a painting. I mentioned Scratch Band was in our living room for about 10 years before he sold that painting. And he would always say, no, it's not done. That's why he didn't feel it was ready to be sold. He was very meticulous about his pieces.
First time that I've heard that an artist could be working on more than one piece at a time. Why do you think that happens?
Well, no, he told me because, so he might do her first, but when he does the entire portrait, it just, and he goes to repaint her, it's just that much easier. And I experienced that myself, right? Because I've done that too. Everything that he taught me, I just replicate. And so I do that myself. It's so much easier when you do it the second time. And so it was his way of perfecting. The main thing he wanted was this wash day. He wanted this to be perfect. So the studies helped him get the lighting right and the setting right, in each piece, because they're different, different story being told back here. There's a horse back here that you barely see, a little donkey, I should say. But they're not the focus, right? The focus is here. And the main thing with his piece is the water. But it was all about composition was the other thing with Leo Cardi. His paintings, he'd be like, don't have things. He'd always tell me, don't have something squeezed in a corner. Everything should fit, proper composition. And so composition was everything as well.
Well, that's why I asked you that question, because other artists have mentioned it to me. So I'm glad I was able to ask you that question, Steph. We're going to go for a break right now. And when we come back, we will be back to the murals and his cartoon period. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, we're back. Sonia Nahardeen with Steph Carty on canerootsartgallery.com, Callaloo Network, Culture TV, and Tempo Network. Hey, Steph, so we're going to continue now because this is a lot and we have a lot to finish up with. But remember, I'm having you back on part 2. So we're going to go into a file that we have that's going to come up on the screen. And it's afternoon talk. So I want you to be able to talk about each photo that you're going to see. So the first one is going to be afternoon talk.
Yes.
I see it's traditionally a building. Again, you think the building was in Christiansted because is that the predominant area that your dad painted, Christiansted?
He mainly focused wherever the historical churches were. But this, this is where we used to lime when I was in high school. This is right downtown Christiansted. This is, and that this is afternoon talk. And again, this is a phenomenal piece. I mean, the pillars, and again, a study. So what I should have done was showed you, because our previous discussion on how he would do studies. So I have about 4 different versions to this one, where there are less people in some. But what he was perfecting were the shadows. Do you see how the shadows are hitting and coming through each pillar? And just the perspective in this is phenomenal. The shadows, the light, and again, this piece is just an incredible piece, in my opinion.
But you don't happen to know what building it is, do you?
No, it's right downtown Christiansted. I saw on Facebook, because I posted the earlier version to this that it doesn't have the man and the woman, with the feet on the ground, and someone referenced, well, it is across the street from the government house. That I do know, right? So this is right across from the government house.
So
right there.
our next,
Mhm.
okay, I'll actually look at that myself when I go down King Street. The next 2 pieces we're going to see, it's one where your dad is actually on a scaffold. So let's talk about the mural that he did.
Yes. So this, at the time, one of my dad's mentors is the famed Jacob Lawrence. He taught my dad, I believe, at Cooper Union, and might have been Pratt, but I believe it was Cooper Union. And Jacob Lawrence, of course, the famous, famous artist. And at the time of this mural in 1992, my dad joined his mentor and became only the 3rd African American to get a federal commission mural. The 1996 the award that I referenced earlier was a big deal. Yes, but this is right there. This is right there with it. And so each pillar, if you go to the next slide, the next slide shows it. Yes, right. So this was to reference the history of the Virgin Islands, and so each panel represented St. Thomas, St. Croix, and St. John history, and it's just, again, an incredible piece of work. He also, this is an example of him just not being an impressionistic artist, right? That was a 12-year run, from '89 to 2001. I would call that his impressionistic phase, but within that, these are portraits. It tells the entire Virgin Island history. I mean, just a phenomenal piece. This is a half a show in by itself, Sonia. Phenomenal.
Stage. Let's go to the cartoon phase at his cartoon period at the Avis newspaper, which is still an existing newspaper today on St. Croix.
Yes. Yes. So Saturday mornings, I would hear the jazz going, and early I'd hear the jazz going, and this was Dad getting in his vibe. And this is actually the desk where he did those cartoons. And he would get his material from the Doc Washington show. And I know I have friends and family that are stateside. They were podcasting before podcasting. And this was the jokes and just the back and forth and the political banter. Different, politicians on both sides of the aisles calling in. And I mean, it would be so ruckus. But that's where he would get his content to create. And if you could just scroll to the next slide, he would design these cartoons. And I know when it's 10:30 and I don't see him drawing yet, I knew I need to maybe go down to the Princess Court and get out of his way, because he was in a time crunch to get these done. And if he didn't have material yet, and it was getting long in the afternoon, I'd stay out of his way. But he would create these pieces, and as we go around, sometimes people will confront him on these cartoons. If you please scroll and show some of the other cartoons, if you can. So he would show the cartoons. Sonia, are you with me?
Yes, I'm with you.
Yes. Okay. There we go. Yes. So he would, here is, the second elected governor of the Virgin Islands. He would honor Black history. He'd come up with other things. You could just scroll through. I think the next one will show Black History Month, where he would feature, like Queen Mary, Alexander Hamilton, King again, and Boudreaux. And he did that in '84. He did his first cartoon in '76 for the Avis.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to correct you on that part. Not Alexander Hamilton. It was D. Hamilton Jackson.
D. Hamilton Jackson. Thank you.
Not the Hamilton who went on to found the Constitution.
No.
In America, yes.
No, not him.
This is the D. Hamilton Jackson here.
Absolutely, I stand corrected. Yes, I misspoke. And here is the Doc. This is the one I wanted to get to. So this is the Doc James show, right?
Yes.
So I might have said Doc Washington too if I did, but I meant Doc James. And so he's throwing the sour grapes, and I remember Dad being confronted by the senator, and in a nice way, just said, I see your cartoon, I don't think it was very complimentary to me. And he just laughed and, never meant any harm. He was just telling the stories. And in this one, he's talking about the legislature and the VI ship estate during the hurricane season, and why they, legislature is doing the infighting. What about the people? And that was an '83 cartoon there.
Yes. And then we have one more.
One more in there. And this is the lawsuit against the VI government in '86. So yeah, Sonia, I don't know much of the back history to some of these cartoons. I could just mostly speak to the process.
Yes.
But he, again, he's left an immense catalog of those cartoons.
But I wanted to make sure that we looked at that because of the varied depth of your father's work. So in many different ways, I guess I have to think of a word that is always, I've always thought about Romare Bearden being a Renaissance man. So in many different ways, your father was a Renaissance man because his bodies of work, he did so many different things, school teacher, mentor, working for the newspaper, documenting history in Harlem, going to some of the most prestigious art schools in New York City. There was so much about your father, again, and leaving such an incredible legacy for us. And when we do part 2 on this of your father, we will certainly look into those other parts of his legacy with you and what you want to share with us. I really want to thank you today for, I would say that this happened so, we've talked about it a long time ago, but this happened so organically. I really appreciate from you the ability to collaborate, to let things flow and to pass ideas between each other. And I think that I can really help you develop whatever it is that you need to develop here on the island. And I really appreciate, again, you giving me the opportunity to make that happen.
Yes, and I want to thank you. I mean, we thank you. The family thanks you, Sonia. And we want to just thank the entire territory. My dad was beloved. I'm seeing some of the comments, that people are putting up and posting. We love you for loving him. You can add to that list that he was a Virgin Islander Olympian, chess Olympian. He went to 3 chess Olympiads because he was a phenomenal chess player too. But we could talk more about that on the second show. But we love you for loving him. We thank you for appreciating his art, and we want to continue to share it. Share it through Cardi Fine Art Studios and partnering Sonia with, great people like yourself, and just doing anything that we can to help inspire the next generation of artists in the territory.
And quoting a very dear friend of mine, Essie Green, who was my mentor, she would always say, you can't establish a place for the young generation of artists if you don't make sure you secure a place for the artists that came before. So I leave you all with that. And I thank you so much for joining us today. Sonia Nahardeen with Steph Carty at kingrootsartgallery.com, Callaloo Network Culture TV, broadcasting on Tempo Network. Again, thank you.
Thank you for having us.